the peach with the cinnamon. Oh, it's gone. It's all gone.
All right. Hey, everybody. This is Zane Simon for the 6th-round post-fight show with my co-host, Eddie Mercado. Coming here right after UFC London, Volkov versus Werdum, UFC, latest UFC fight night. I don't know, UFC fight night 127. Apparently they're still numbering these things. There've been a fuck ton of them. So, as anticipated, a fun midday fight card of meaningless good action fights.
Yeah, maybe like 5 ranked guys, if that, and the rest, just a bunch of prospects, really.
Yep.
A bunch of people that, everyone's curious about, or at least, people who care about the sport are curious about and have a lot of questions about. And we got some answers tonight. So,
yeah,
I thought it was relevant in that sense of like where the future of the sport might be heading. But not exactly in terms of divisional
most of the future of the sport hit some hard walls tonight.
And, that's going to happen.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. But, main event, we saw the opposite. We saw someone who might be making a run, and Alexander Volkov stopping Fabricio Werdum with strikes. A lot of people didn't know if he had the power to get that done. A lot of people didn't know if he could survive on the ground. And
yeah, I mean, I guess in part A, I'm super impressed that Volkov was able to weather, early bad positions, stop from getting submitted, and turn the tide on Werdum as the fight went on. But also, Werdum did look old out there. Like, he looked older than expected, to me, at least.
Yeah, he was full-on dad bod out there.
Well, and it was just like there was that moment where, like, in the first round, he had dominant position for most of that round, and then he stood up, and he just suddenly he looked more tired. You're like, oh, that doesn't look good. And then he got lit up for a while, and then Volkov just kind of took his foot off the gas, basically coasted in round 2, and Werdum got him down immediately again and was working him over again. It's like, oh, well, maybe Werdum will, maybe if Volkov's going to fight like this, it won't cost Werdum anything. And then Werdum gets up again, and he's just like, oh, man, he's looking really slow.
Slow and desperate.
Yeah. And after that second round, he won both the first 2 rounds clearly, but everything was just like, this is not going to work anymore.
Yeah, because he couldn't do much with the takedown once he got it. Despite the easy takedowns, like Volkov was giving them up like nobody's business. Like,
yeah, Volkov's takedown. I mean, that's why I picked Werdum going in, because Volkov's takedown defense has always been terrible, and it's still terrible. But he survived on the ground, and then it was a battle of cardio, and Werdum just didn't have it anymore.
Man, and like I remember Volkov's last fight was against Czech Congo, and I remember breaking that down on the vivisection.
Last loss?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I remember like predicting how that fight was going, and it went exactly how you thought, like Congo backing him up to the fence. But like for whatever reason, after that, it seems like Volkov has just made some serious adjustments to where he's making his style work for him.
Yeah.
Like, even though he still gets in these fucked up situations, he at least knows how to get out of them. And he can sustain his style for the duration of the fight, getting this 4th round TKO, looking fresh, just as fresh in the 4th as he did in the 1st, I think. And that's after going through having to grapple with Fabricio Werdum.
Yep.
Like, you're grappling with Werdum and making Werdum tired? That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's worth noting he's been TKO'd once by Vitaly Minikov in Bellator 108 back in 2013. But a big part of Volkov is really just he's got a ton of experience. He's really, really tough, and then he's got good cardio for a dude who's 6'7". And when you can apply all of that together, like he's gonna get chances to fight through things. So that was a big part of the Struve fight too. Like Struve was doing really well in that fight, but it was a fast-paced fight, and as it went on, Struve just kept getting more and more exhausted, and Volkov didn't. So that's all stuff he can lean on. It's just with takedown defense like that, a fight against Stipe Miocic or Daniel Cormier is going to be problem. It's going to be a problem.
Yeah, very problematic for Volkov.
Yeah.
But what the fuck, man? He's on a crazy tear right now. That's so undeniable.
And honestly, if Miocic wins, Volkov is the top contender. Like, there's not really any two ways about it. Like, you beat Fabricio Werdum, there's nobody else at the top of that division. You know?
Nah.
There's no fight we haven't seen.
And I'm okay with that. Like, I'm down to see Volkov up there. Like, good for him. And didn't he win the Bellator belt at one point? Didn't he take out Blagoy Ivanov, I think? Didn't that win him some sort of belt somewhere?
He won the tournament finale.
Okay.
He then won the M1 heavyweight title after his back-to-back losses to Tony Johnson and Chet Congo in Bellator. So,
man, he's so improved. He's got to be the most improved fighter that I can just think of off the top of my head. That's making a run.
So, definitely, you know, I'm really glad we've been looking for this kind of changeover with top flight heavyweights. Seeing Volkov get it, seeing Blades get it done. It's good. It's good for the sport. It's good for getting more fights. If Werdum wants to keep going, there are still other old heavyweights out there that he can fight a million times over. Like, I think Arlovsky beat him years and years ago, so he can fight Andrei Arlovsky, although Arlovsky's fighting Tai Tuivasa for some reason.
Yeah, I heard about that too. Which I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Still, I'm excited. Volkov, like I say, if Cormier wins, then obviously you're probably making Miocic Cormier too. But if Miocic wins, then Volkov is probably the clear title contender. Light heavyweight bout before that, Jan Blachowicz beat Jimmy Manuwa in a really fun version of a fight that I never would thought I wanted to watch again, right?
A fucking fight broke out in this fight.
Yeah.
Who expected a war after their first one?
Yeah, it's weird because it now kind of makes me rewrite my opinion on the first one because Jimmy Manuwa was injured in that first fight. And, you know, partially you could say, oh, Blachowicz got better and all that. But I kind of wondered, too, if his injury in the first fight didn't make him hesitant enough to pull the trigger, that he just didn't give Blachowicz openings for all the counters that Blachowicz landed in this fight. Because that was really what it was, is that Manuwa's aggression and his tendency to lean on big power shots just kept walking him into combinations over and over and over again.
And over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And not to mention the fact that Jan Blachowicz has the most invisible jab that I've ever seen. Like, he's hitting fuckers with this jab, and it's like, for whatever reason, like, people just don't address it, or they don't see it coming, or I don't know what it is, but they just sit there and just block it with their face. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, you're bleeding from your schnoz, and you're just like religiously refusing to address this jab in any sort of meaningful way.
Yeah, in the first fight, Manuwa was able to counter it by slipping under it and landing hard right hands, but this fight, that was not happening at all.
And I mean, maybe a lot of that is the jab didn't show up until the third round, really.
Yeah.
So it was like, and that's another thing is Blachowicz was throwing so much variety at Manuwa. I mean, like takedowns and just body kicks and really, and like these blitzes of uppercuts and hooks. Like, he was really so much more diverse than Manuwa was. Manuwa had his pressure and his power shots, but that wasn't enough.
Yeah, it was especially notable, too, that Manuwa just looked terrible off his back foot. Like, Blachowicz, he fights off his back foot to a fault. He gets himself back to the cage. He can be inactive. He can let himself be set up to be hit. But when he pressured Manuwa's just like stood there until the punches landed and then started running backwards while more punches landed. You know?
Yeah. Not a good look. That linear movement backwards is really what did him in here. And, you know, it makes you wonder about Mr. Manuwa here, how he's going from like this, you know, top 3, top 4 light heavyweight, like possible title contender, to like, wait a minute, this guy might just be the gatekeeper.
Well,
like,
suddenly he's 38 and he's losing fights he was winning. So you start to wonder, like,
his window's gone or is closing really, really fast.
For Blachowicz, though, I mean, suddenly for a dude who looked like he was just guaranteed to be this kind of UFC washout, or at the very least sort of a gatekeeper to the top 15, he's gonna be a top-ranked light heavyweight now. Like I know that doesn't mean much, but
the reason it doesn't mean much is because he's looking at nothing but rematches, like rematch with Manua, rematch with Latifi, rematch with Gustafsson. What, Ozdemir, who's coming off a loss?
DC, he can fight Ozdemir or Shogun.
Shogun, come on, man. You know damn well Shogun is not in the top. Like, enough.
I know, but it all means something for those trash-ass rankings.
But that's not a real fight, though.
He could also fight OSP, who's...
No, he just got choked the fuck out.
I know he did, but I'm just saying, like, Blachowicz does have some new fights in that division to take as a guy who's suddenly, like, a gatekeeper to the top 5 or something. I don't know. Like,
I don't think so. I think if he wants to move to a title, it's nothing but rematches outside of Ozdemir, who's coming off a loss. And this is an interesting situation for Blachowicz here, because he has the chance to actually make a title run. So, like, I can't see him taking a fight below him. That's silly. Like, that's silly. You got to this position. Like, this is your shot. Like, it's now or never.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing he's got going for him so far is the fact that he's honestly actually never been knocked out. His only loss is a knockout is a retirement to Sokaju from exhaustion back in 2011, and being a generally slowly improving light heavyweight who still has his chin, that makes him an interesting fighter in big fights still. So
yeah, and holding a win over Latifi is big also. Like, that's an interesting rematch. But like, I wouldn't be surprised if Jan starts training with Manua and all them now, and then it just becomes completely worthless at the top of the light heavyweight division.
Yeah, but so obviously that fight was way better than the first one. Do you actually want to see a third version of that? Do you want to make Blachowicz like replay Jimmy Manuwa just to see if Manuwa can get it back and somehow still be at the top of the division? Like, I don't know that actually does anything for anyone.
The only thing it does is keep the division kind of still going, because, like, obviously DC is tied up, so like a title shot's not happening anytime soon. So, but that's not the fight. I'd rather see him fight Latifi. Like, that rematch is way more interesting to me. It's a lot more high stakes. Manuwa, like, he didn't do enough in this fight for me to like want to see a rematch.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling too. It's like the way Manuwa performed tonight, it doesn't make me like, oh, I want Manuwa to get another chance to revenge this loss. Like, he actually just looks like he's kind of fading a little, and that doesn't make a third fight seem more fun.
Let him fight Shogun. That's something that seems more legitimate.
Yeah. For that bantamweight bout, Tom Duquesnoy beat Terrion Ware.
If you say so.
What?
If you say so.
Yeah, I'm not saying, like, the first 2 rounds, it was a close fight. I'm not mad Duquesnoy won it. It could go either way. But I don't think Duquesnoy won it. And I really don't think that the way he won this fight says anything good about his prospects moving up the division.
Unless Terrion Ware is just really that freaking tough. Because, like, Sean O'Malley struggled with him too. You know what I mean?
He is that tough. There's no question. But when he fought Sean O'Malley, like, Sean O'Malley clearly imposed physicality on Terrion Ware. He got tired. He dropped around. But then when it came to the third round, he was once again the stronger, fresher, faster, more powerful athlete in the cage. He was able to clearly delineate, I am the better athlete, so I'm winning this fight. Duquesnoy just kind of hung with him and had a really competitive back and forth contest against somebody who is a really tough out, but kind of just doesn't seem like to have elite physicality for his division.
It's a weird situation. Like, he looks smaller than Terrion Ware, But like the commentators were like, "Oh, he needs to move up a division."
Yeah,
I'm like, "Move up a division? Are you fucking kidding me?" Like that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. If anything, he needs to go the opposite direction, or at least stay where he is, or maybe he is just not built like that. Like he gives me a less athletic Eduardo Dantas feel, and like
yeah,
it's not. That's not a good thing. Like for
no,
that sort of style, you need to be really athletic. Like
yeah,
your cardio, more specifically, needs to be through the roof. If you're not going to have that sort of pop on your punches, which Dukenwald doesn't outside of his elbows, like you really need a serious gas tank, and he just doesn't. He spent that entire third round on his back foot, backpedaling, defending.
yeah.
You know, so yeah, he landed a couple leg kicks here and there, but if you look at the punch totals or the strike totals, it's definitely in the favor of Terrion Ware here. So I scored this 29-28 for Terrion Ware, but a lot of money was on Dukenwald, so what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's a tough loss for Ware, of course, who drops now to 0-3 in the UFC, having fought Dukenwald, Stamen, and O'Malley. So
We're all like tough dudes. Like that's a tough 3-fight streak, you know?
Yeah. So I feel for him, and Dukenwald, yeah, like this was supposed to be the fight where he really reimposed himself and reasserted, no, I'm a prospect, I can handle this dude. And it just kind of felt like, nah, you're looking more like Thomas Almeida kind of thing, where it's like you might have some exciting fights and you can do some, you can be a fun fighter, but when it really comes to separating out the cream of the crop, better athletes are just going to have your number.
Yeah, it's unfortunate too because he's really technical and has some really beautiful strikes. Like his leg kicks were phenomenal, but I don't think he won this fight.
For that, Leon Edwards beat Peter Sabota. Saw some people mad about the stoppage at the end, but I don't really know why. Like he was gonna win the fight anyway. Still, a really fun, technical, back and forth fight. I thought a lot of good, fun grappling, a lot of interesting moments of powerful offense from Edwards, and Sabota trying to be the more active kickboxer, but not really able to compete with the speed. And then some really fun grappling and wrestling exchanges that I enjoyed a lot.
I was a little surprised that Rocky was so down to grapple here, like especially after dropping Sabata in the first. Like I figured, like, oh shit, my path of least resistance is obviously on the feet. But he was like, hey, let's beat this guy at his own game here. And
well, there's that, and I think Connor and I have talked about this a lot, but Edwards is just not a comfortable combination striker. He does not like to stand in the pocket and throw hands, and that's probably a lot of why he's worked so hard to become as good a wrestler as he has. So even he's doing work standing, but it's just like if he wants to get to his comfort zone and have the fight feel like he's in control, what he wants to do is he wants to be on top of his opponent. He wants to be controlling and finding an avenue towards ground and pound, and eventually that's what he did. He was able to wear Sabota out and kind of break him in a long, drawn out grappling battle, which
is impressive.
Yeah,
that's really impressive. And he looked good. He was caught in a couple of bad positions. He got overzealous a bit and found himself in some serious submission attempts, but he stayed calm and worked out of them and imposed his will from the top. So shout out to him. He's now on a 5-fight winning streak and over some pretty legit competition, like guys like Albert Tumanov and Barberena, whatnot. So it looks like a fight is shaping up with him and Darren Till. So that's pretty cool. 2 UK guys going at it.
Yeah, it's the call he made. I think Till and probably the UFC may still be angling to try to get Wonder Boy to take that fight.
Oh, I'm sure. That's a way more money fight.
But Edwards is out there. He's going to be a problem for a lot of dudes in that division at the top. Guys like, potentially guys like Santiago Ponzinibbio and other dudes who are making a run who maybe just aren't going to be able to compete with him wrestling. I still think guys like Usman and Covington are going to be a really big challenge because of that.
Well, Usman already has a win over him.
But Usman already has a win over him.
Sort of like MO right there.
And Covington, like more physical, more powerful wrestlers in that division are just going to be able to shut down almost his entire game. but anybody who can't impose that, he's going to be a challenge. It would be really interesting, actually, to see him face somebody like Damian Maia at some point in the near future.
Oh man, I feel like that's a bad matchup. I feel like that forces Rocky to stand and work his striking.
Exactly. You got to do it somehow, you know? Like, if he wants to be an elite fighter at the top of that division.
I mean, I want to see him against Neil Magny also. I think that's an interesting matchup. Like, that'll be a real litmus test there.
Yeah.
Someone a little rounded.
Before that, Charles Byrd beat John Phillips, and really impressed to see Byrd stick to a game plan. Usually he's had a lot of trouble just being wild and unstructured. But Phillips also looked totally lost off of his back. Like,
well, he's definitely more of a boxer. Like, that's what he wants to be. And Byrd, yeah, like you said, man, he just stuck to the game plan, stuck to the script, instantly got the fucking takedown. He's like, I'm not even like pretending I want to stand with you. No. I'm not going to bait you into a takedown. I'm going to bum rush you and put you on your back, and I'm going to keep you there with this insane top pressure. And if you're not going to deal with it, I'm going to choke you the fuck out. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Excellent official UFC debut, because this cat won 2 of the Dana White Contender Series fights. Didn't get the contract, but ultimately made it. I don't think he won a contract, right? Didn't he?
He did the second time.
Okay.
He got it the second time, and he's already 34, so not exactly a prospect, but it's really good to see a guy who's as athletic as he is finally have things click, where it's like, now I get how I should be fighting, how I should be looking to control people, stick with the game plan, stuff like that, because I picked against him here because he's usually been the guy who's just willing to hang out and strike with people who are better strikers than him, gives up position when he goes to the back, going for things that he's not really in position to get. And, Phillips has heavy hands, and I figured if he gave him too much of a chance to bang it out, he'd lose. But to Phillips, I mean, man, for a dude who's been in the UFC or who's been in MMA, not in the UFC, but who's been in the MMA for over a decade, and who is out there training at SBG Ireland and all that.
Which means nothing.
It means nothing, but it's a camp that's pushed a lot of talent into the UFC. It's just amazing how entirely one-dimensional his game looked.
Well, yeah, man. Like, he was dead to rights from the get-go. He had no business here. And it's like, you have to ask yourself, like, where does this is this Phillips really being terrible on the ground? Is this Byrd being really great on the ground with this top pressure? Like, where exactly? So I think Bird's next fight will really be the bigger test. Like, what if he can't just instantly get a takedown? Is he going to resort to the, hey, I want to strike with you kind of thing? Or is he going to try again or stick with that? Who knows? But at least it's something positive to look forward to.
It's a very positive performance in this fight. Before that, welterweight bout, Danny Roberts beat Oliver Enkamp, and man, Roberts looked good, and Enkamp looks like he's way in over his head. Like,
yeah, it didn't look good for him, and like, no. I'm not sure if like
he's a really interesting striker, and like a kid who seems to have an interesting, like, diverse game that he's kind of piecing together out of, karate and wrestling, basically. But he's had what now? He got to the UFC after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pro fights over 4 years, and he's 26, and he looks like he's not at all ready. It just looks like his game isn't deep enough, and Roberts keyed in on that immediately and just bombed him with left hands.
Yeah, this almost looked criminal. And it's like, so Roberts, he lands a really nice left hand early on that kind of prompted the clinch, really.
Yeah.
Enkamp was like, okay, I'm closing the distance here and working a takedown. Now, I don't know if it was like, if plan A was to strike with Roberts and he was like, fuck this, that was heavy.
Yeah.
Plan B is to grapple.
Yeah.
But like, the second he couldn't get the takedown, the second effort for the takedown didn't work, He's like, fuck the takedown. I'm going back to plan A, and like was like, okay, let me just strike on a break, and just completely bailed and let Roberts off the fence. Like, what, are you kidding me? Like, you just got rocked with the left hand. Like, obviously this dude's coming for your head. You had him up against the cage in the recessive position. Why are you gonna just let him off like that?
Yeah, I mean, he's just inexperienced, and it's really clear. Decision making's not there. The depth of skill isn't there. I think that's a big thing. It's just like, he's pushing for the takedown. He doesn't have the depth of technique to get it, and he doesn't have any other ideas, any other things he can go to with it. And man, it's the UFC making him pay for that. They're putting him in against like the seasoned, like journeyman vets who've had 30 fights and are hungry and looking for wins, and Roberts just took a piece out of him.
It's such not a good look.
Yeah.
It really isn't. But like Roberts, he looked good,
Yeah.
Still sloppy, but powerful, and he knows he's powerful. He's a fun action fighter. But even training with Henry Hooft, Henry Hooft in his corner, I still can't see Roberts. He's not someone who I really expect consistency from, but definitely someone who is going to be fun every time he fights. It's going to be exciting. Something worthwhile is going to happen during his fight. So definitely a guy to just keep an eye on for that reason.
Before that, running on the prospect ruining little playlist the UFC's got going here, Danny Henry absolutely put the fucking screws to Hakeem Dawodu in 30 seconds.
That was so badass, man. That was so fucking badass. It was a club and tech sub.
Yeah.
Like, it does not get sweeter than that. 39 seconds. It doesn't get sweeter than that. And like I lost my high on Dawodu back when he was in the World Series of Fighting. When he went to a draw, I forget who it was against.
Marat Magomedov, Dagestani.
Yeah, he went to a draw with him, and that was when I was like, okay, like this guy isn't exactly as good as I initially thought he was. Like, for all his flash kickboxing experience or whatever, it just honestly doesn't translate that greatly. Like against super cans, sure, but watching this is kind of what I expected would happen back when he was in the WSOF, and I was like, what would happen if he went to the UFC? That's what I thought would happen, and that's exactly what the fuck just happened. So tough debut for Dawodu, but excellent win for Danny Henry here.
Yeah, Danny Henry. I mean, he's really kind of putting himself in that really like finding that Rick Glenn role, where it's like the dude where you're like, this dude's not a prospect. He's not beating anybody out there. He just takes shots all the time. He doesn't wrestle very well. Like, who is anybody fooling with this kid? And then he scraps like hell and is tough as shit. Like,
who saw that coming, honestly? Yeah.
So, for a guy that I have picked to get blown out in both of his UFC fights, he is showing up huge. And this was a fun win. I got to pay attention because he's starting to win fights in really fun ways. For a guy who is,
I think he won Fight of the Night in his debut, right? With Daniel Tamer. I think that was Fight of the Night.
And he's not a great athlete. He's not an incredibly, he doesn't have the wrestling to marry his aggressive grappling and his boxing, and he doesn't have any defense to his boxing, but shit, he's going to go out there and he's going to be aggressive as hell and tough and throw everything at opponents. So guys he's fought aren't ready for it.
Dawodu wasn't ready. I was just about to say he wasn't ready.
Then before that, Paul Craig beat Magomed Ankalaev. Ankalaev, I've been watching him since day one of his career. He turned pro. I saw his first pro fight. I said, holy shit, this dude is the real deal. He is going to be a elite top-level prospect. Came in, beat the brakes off Paul Craig for 14 minutes and 59 seconds.
Yeah.
And then got caught in a fucking triangle and tapped with a second left.
Dude, this is so fucking crazy. This set a record. This was the what is it? The last second submission, longest.
The latest submission in a 3-round fight, the latest TKO in a 3-round fight. Edwards and Craig.
Man, this is fucked up, man. Craig has
Yeah.
really proven that time is the one thing you do not give to jiu-jitsu practitioners. Don't give them fucking time.
Yeah.
That's it, period. And it was almost a spectacular debut. And
it was
it was like up until it wasn't.
For all the spoiled prospect fights on this card, Ankalaev has that's the best, okay, you know what, that's fine. Loss.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, you were dominating this fight. You got sloppy from top control. You got caught by a hyper-aggressive submission artist. That is the stereotypical prospect loss, is getting caught by a hyper-aggressive submission artist off his back. It's fine. It's still, though, it's just like, oh my God, how? 4:59 of round 3. That fight was done. The scorecard, you can see the official scorecard online. The scorekeeper wrote in unanimous decision on Ankalaev and had to scratch it out and then write in the actual thing.
I mean, kudos, though, to Ankalaev, because he was trying to finish the fight up until the last second. It was actually his ground and pound is what fucked him up.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's go ahead and throw this last second strike because the fight's still going on instead of just fucking riding it out. So mad respect to that. But like, Craig just seized the moment. Like, that's what this was, is he summons his inner Liam McGeary and was like, Hail Mary, boom. And he fucking got it.
Yeah.
Like,
all credit to Craig. He looked fantastic. Magomed
no, he did not look fantastic. Hold on, he did not look fantastic.
I mean, the win was fantastic. He looked like the same guy who's going to get trashed by every other light heavyweight who hits hard.
Yes.
But the win was fantastic. You're right.
He extends his chin out there for you to hit him. Like, it's beyond hittable.
Yeah, it's the same. It's just, man. That one hurts. It hurts deep down in the soul. But it is also like the best loss a prospect can take, where you're just dominating and then you get caught out of nowhere by a submission. And it's the kind of thing that experience and time will teach him to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a lesson here. Like, it's not like a brutal lesson. It's a painful lesson, but like okay, never again am I going to make that kind of mistake lesson. And another thing, this keeps Craig in the UFC, so we'll get to see that kind of Hail Mary style at play again.
Oh, yeah. Win or lose, Craig is always a shitload of fun to watch. He's never willing to go out of a fight without being on his shield. Like, you'll never see him lose a decision, as he showed here. I
didn't hear the audio, but I guarantee as he has that triangle song, he's screaming, freedom! Choking him out.
That brings us to a lightweight bout. Cajun Johnson, Stevie Ray. Started out as the ugliest, slowest fight between two counterpunchers. And then, credit to Johnson, he started putting pressure on Ray. Ray turned it around and started putting pressure on Johnson. Both men had some back-and-forth success, some fun in there. Eventually, Johnson's offensive wrestling and a little bit more technical leading kind of won it out for him in the end. I'm happy with him winning. Ray came on strong late in the fight as Johnson started to slow down and his footwork started to slow. I definitely thought Ray took the third round. Yeah. But he dropped the first two, Johnson figured it out first that he needed to be aggressive to win. And by the time Ray figured it out, it was already too late.
Yeah, Ray just couldn't make it happen. He just got going way too late. The first round was really shitty for both guys. So it was close and probably could have gone either way. But Stevie got dropped there in the second round.
Yep.
So that was really not debatable. And the third round I gave to Stevie because he was really, really trying. And like, he switched up his attack, right?
Yep.
It's like rounds 1, the only thing he was really throwing is fucking spinning kicks. What the fuck is he doing throwing spinning kicks? And then round 2, it's like spinning kicks and haymakers.
Yeah.
And then round 3, it's finally like, oh shit, maybe if I throw these strikes with a little less power and a little more technique, they might fucking land. And sure as shit, they did. Yeah. But it was too little too late. And what are you going to do here? Tough coming, he just got a new contract coming off a brutal loss. Not a good look getting this kind of man, this isn't how you want to.
No, this isn't how you want to start after a bad contract negotiation with the UFC.
Yeah, not a good look. And the funny thing was, Kayjon, he let the crowd hear it, man, on the microphone afterwards because they were booing, and he's like, "Hey, man, y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. Like, we're out here competing and bleeding. Y'all should be ashamed." I was like, dude, what a G moment.
Yeah, not the best fight to have to give that that talk after, but you know, I gotta love any fighter who's willing to just go out there and tell people off. Like, yeah, okay, the crowd can tell you off, and you can turn around and give it right back to them and tell them to go fuck themselves.
Yeah, I respect it, Yeah. But that first round, they deserve to be booed.
Yeah,
it's not
the first round. I mean, the UFC booked two guys who circle away and look to counter off their back foot. You're gonna get a terrible fight. Like, there's no other way about that.
Ray tried to come forward, but he just sucks at cutting off the cage. So it did nothing for him.
Yeah. That brought us to a heavyweight bout. Dmitry Sosnovsky, Mark Godbeer kicking it off. About as sloppy a grappling match as you'll see in the UFC. I'm shocked Sosnovsky won it, frankly, just because he absolutely gassed himself out in 3 minutes of slop grappling with Mark Godbeer, but it turns out that Mark Godbeer was totally willing to keep a sloppy grappling match going until he got clipped and shot in on a bad takedown and got choked out.
The fact that Godbeer was initiating the clinches and the takedowns was just, it blew my mind. I was convinced that he was just going to stand there and try to trade, but that's not what happened. And he seemed to have the better cardio, but it didn't matter. Dude coming off 3 years of not fighting still had enough in him to choke out Godbeer. So, good on him. And I guess I'll give him a little bit of slack. I'm gonna cut him some slack here on the cardio issue. It's not a good look, but 3 years off really does. That sucks.
He's also a can crusher coming off of a 3-year layoff. So
Mark Godbeer though.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that a guy who's never even fought somebody as good as Mark Godbeer, at all.
Fair. Definitely fair.
Yeah.
Godbeer really is the bar.
He's an explode fight veteran, finally fighting in the UFC. I'm not at all shocked his cardio was trash. So hopefully these kinds of lessons lead to improvements, because sometimes you never know with guys like this. Like, he definitely was the better athlete in the cage. Mark Godbeer is not a good athlete, but Sosnovsky was clearly a better athlete.
Yeah.
And so if he can turn this into a learning experience and say, okay, I got to get in better shape, I've got to train better, I've got to be more technical, maybe he'll blossom and be, a lot better fighter. In the meantime, he's got an intro win.
It's funny because that's what Godbeer did after his last win. That gift that Walt Harris gave him, he went out to what was it, Phuket top team, training Muay Thai out there and stuff. Didn't fucking matter. He came out here looking for the takedown.
Well, yeah, he's also just not a good athlete. You can't train to be a better athlete, really. You can't make yourself faster or more coordinated.
True. The grappling exchanges out here were very uncoordinated. That's probably the best way to describe them. But another young person, 28, but that's young for heavyweight. So
yeah,
definitely in a division that needs something of anything.
Yeah.
And Godbeer really is the bar. If you can beat him, you're UFC caliber, and if you can't, go hit the regional again.
Yep. Overall, though, fun card. I mean, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stoppages on a 10-fight card. Hard to argue against that.
And 2 fights that were buzzer beaters, third-round buzzer beaters. When has that ever happened?
Yep. Lots of submissions, too, which we don't see nearly this many. I can't remember the last card I've seen 4 submissions on.
Mm.
So I'm sure it was like yesterday or something, and I'm just blowing smoke out my ass. But whatever.
A solid fucking card, though. Like, Fight Pass cards, it delivers. And I don't know if it's because you don't expect much, but, like, this feels like an older kind of Fight Pass card.
Oh, it was literally the Emmett Stevens Fox card back in February that had 4 submissions on it. So yeah, don't mind me. Whatever. But
cool finishes though. A lot of cool ass fucking finishes.
Yeah. Fun submissions. You know, Dawadu getting tech subs, Ankalaev getting triangles, and then that
Hail
knockout
Mary.
for Roberts, just a fun card overall, up and down, and even the decisions. Blachowicz, Manua, Dukamois, Ware, both fun fights. Johnson versus Ray ended up being a better fight than it was billed to be, so I can't argue too much.
No, and we have
for a midday MMA card.
We got someone gunning for the heavyweight title now.
Yep.
In Volkov, which, by the way, Nurmagomedov wins. Volkov's here gunning for a title shot. UFC Russia starting to look kind of big. I don't know.
All right. On that note, find me on Twitter at TheZaneSimon. You can find Eddie on Twitter at TheEddieMercado. You can find both of us over at BloodyElbow.com. Give us a like. That's a thumbs up thing down below over on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, MMANation.com, DOTCOM, all spelled out. That's where you get all the latest Bloody Elbow shows, videos, news, analysis, all that stuff we do week in, week out. We will not be back for another UFC card for 2 weeks, at which point we will be hitting UFC 223 hard. In the meantime, Eddie will have the 6th-round retro. I will be back with the MMA Depressed Us. We will have If I Did It, Heavy Hands, all our other week in, week out normal shows. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and we will see y'all soon.